Hello and welcome to our interview. My name is Marianne Kanengies and here with me is Elisabet Agar from Sweden, and I'm very glad to have her here today to talk with us. And Elisabet, would you like to introduce yourself a bit?
Yes, hi. So I'm Elisabet Agar. I am from Sweden, or I live in Sweden. I am Swedish and I live in Sweden. I trained as a homeopath in London between the 2000 and 2004 initially at the College of Practical Homeopathy, which I chose because the homeopath we had then had gone there, and she was getting us better, so I thought, well, I'll go there. And that was a very good course, because it wasn't just about homeopathy. It was actually also about how you run your practice and how you preparing us for practicing. And then I can't even remember the dates now, but sometime between, I think it was 2013 and 2016 or something, I did the Dynamis Jeremy Sher course when he was in Sweden for 3 years as well. So I got into homeopathy because my son he was fine, and then all of a sudden when he was around 18, he became severely constipated, so he could only go to the loo or with nappy every 10 days or something. It was very painful, and I went to the doctor, and it was water and prune juice and all the stuff and the other. And he had a very healthy diet, actually, because we were eating a lot of vegetables, and he was drinking lots of water and all that kind of thing, running around. But then she asked me to put some anesthetic cream on his bottom, and I thought, this is mad, this is not going to solve the problem. And then a friend of mine who'd lived in Switzerland and used homeopathy said, we've got this homeopath just opening up in our area, so you should go. And literally the next day he started going to the loo and he was fine. And then over that period he had also a lot of ear infection, tonsillitis, eye infections, so quite a lot of antibiotics. So I thought, right, I'm going to go back. So I only went, I think, two more times, and after that he was ill twice until he was 18. Just twice he ended up having very high fevers for 2 or 3 weeks. Apart from that, he was absolutely fine. So I thought I would like to study this. So that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. So it's the same as it was in me, just experiencing the miracle of homeopathy and then getting enchanted somehow.
And also for me, I didn't realize then how ill I was, actually, but I was quite ill. I was still up and about working and doing stuff, but I had terrible IBS, joint pain, headaches. My memory was really bad, and I was so tired. But I was still kind of just doing things. And then when I became healthy, I realized how bad I'd been. But my problem had also been that I reacted really bad to all the medication I took. So I always get all the side effects. So for me, this was a real, wow, what is this stuff that you can actually become, not so much just sort of taking headache pills a period. I had endometriosis and pain, and it was awful. And then all of a sudden, it really was. It was quite gradual for me. It wasn't as dramatic as it was for him, but gradually I just got healthier and healthier and healthier. And then I realized this is the problem for a lot of people. They don't realize how bad the situation is. Because it's normal, it's common. It's not normal, but it's common.
Yes, you just get adjusted to not being healthy anymore.
Yeah, and the doctors just say, and I'm not completely against everything that doctors do, because I think they do some fantastic things. But when it comes to these kind of chronic problems, they just said, it's normal to have a period pain, but not at the level where you're fainting and falling off buses and that kind of thing. It's not normal. It's common, but it's not normal.
So you told me one very interesting thing before we started the interview, and that is a very rare law, which is very special for Sweden, that children below the age of 8 cannot be treated by complementary medicine according to a law.
Yeah, that came up in the 60s because apparently they were worried about that parents wouldn't seek help for their children, because in those days, children started school at 7, and sometimes they didn't have any contact with any other, you know, they were worried that they wouldn't have contact with any other sort of, you know, teachers or anybody else who might be able to notice that something was not quite right. And Sweden is the only country in the world with this law, because I checked.
Yes, I never heard anything like that.
Yeah, no, when I started looking into this, I was told that it was Sweden, North Korea, and Cuba. So I rang the embassies of North Korea in London, and they said no. You know, people use all sorts of herbs and medicines, maybe not homeopathy, but they use. And in Cuba, you know, we know that they use homeopathy. So Sweden is the only country, and they are now considering changing this law to raise it to 15.
This is very incredible for me because in the start of life, there's the onset of health. And if you don't give a child the possibility to have complementary medicine, they never will have a very active immune system.
I know.
Yeah, you know, me know.
We know. But I like to say, rather than saying that children can't be treated, when I talk about it, I say, because I say parents are not allowed to seek help for their children, even if the conventional care can't help them, they're not allowed to seek help. So it's complete madness, really. You can, apparently, a GP, because there was a court case in Sweden, a GP or a medical doctor can treat them. If they've tried everything else, they can treat them with complementary medicine. But the problem is there are nobody's trained to treat with homeopathy, because a doctor is not allowed to be a homeopath. So it's...
Oh, in Sweden, a doctor is not allowed to
I believe that, yeah. So I know people who are nurses, and they can't say that they're a homeopath. They don't tell people that they're homeopaths at work.
Where did this word go, huh?
Yeah.
It is bad.
But on a different level, I noticed that I'm getting, I think I've become better at marketing myself actually online. I wasn't doing much marketing. I'm not doing much now, but I did some last year, and I'm finding I'm getting a lot more patients. You know, people who've never tried it but would like to try. They might not always be, you know, the people who've tried everything. They might actually come at an earlier stage. So I think the general public, the awareness is changing in the general public.
Oh, that sounds good. So are there mostly Swedish people coming to your office or other nations?
No, I think, no, it's a mix. I do get, I would say, gosh, I don't know, I'm not very good at maths. Maybe 60% Swedish and 40% other nationalities.
Okay.
But they are actually mostly in Sweden. I do have some foreign in other countries, but they're mostly here.
And you're going for online office now, or do people come?
Yeah, well, I've actually been working online since, because that's something they actually talked to us about when I first trained, and they said, you know, we need to get homeopathy into the 21st century. We need to do online consultations, you know. So I've actually been doing them since then, but more so in the last 2 or 3 years. So at the moment, I only see people online because I've got my parents are very old, they're 89 and 90, and they still live in their own house on their own. So I need to go in and they're very independent, but I want to go and help them sometimes. So I'm restricting how many people I meet.
I understand.
And I would say, so normally I only have 1 day every other week in the clinic anyway, so it's not, it hasn't changed much, really.
So you said you're taking your cases online. Now, case taking in homeopathy is totally different to case taking in conventional medicine.
Yes.
In conventional medicine, we restrict ourselves to a diagnosis. We have a look at the symptoms of the client, very superficial look in reality. We will look at some diagnostics. We will have our blood tests. And then the prescription is upon the diagnosis. Yeah. Now, in homeopathy, this is totally different. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes, it's, well, number one is that we have obviously got more time than if you go to a GP. Sometimes you can, if you need to see specialists, you get longer time. But usually in Sweden anyway, it's like 10 minutes in a drop-in clinic, and you're only allowed to bring up one symptom. You're not allowed to. You have to come back if you want to bring something else up. It's, you know, so it's like what I like about homeopathy is that you look at both the, you know, the physical body, the mental and emotional sphere of things. And one thing that I was taught in the first college as well, they were very talking to us a lot about doing timelines, because when you do the timeline, you can really see what has happened and when and why. And even patients sometimes go, oh, I didn't realize that it was like that. So that's, you know, it is, to me, it's a bit like being a detective, that you have to start, you know, somebody comes in and says, I have a problem with A, B, C, whatever, or they say one thing. They usually only tell me one thing. And sometimes if they have a lot of things, they kind of apologize because they have a lot of things. And I said, no, we're here to put everything on the table now. So listing all the different things, and then doing the timelines, going through from head to toe, you know, all that kind of thing, to try and pinpoint when this person, what happened, where's the crack at this person, what happened to this person, or was it, or maybe if they need the remedy from the beginning, or stuff. But I find it really fascinating, and I love it when the patient starts realizing how everything goes together.
How everything is interconnected.
Connected, yeah.
And this is something usually an allopath doesn't look upon, the career of a disease, the history of the disease, which is often 10 and more years old. And
even longer.
It starts at one point in the body and then goes inside and inside and more inside and spreads out, but it's still the same disease.
No, I just find it really fascinating and obviously, as you will know, some patients can talk, and they love, you know, they really want to talk. But still, even the ones that are really closed and don't really want to talk that much, there are symptoms, you know, rubrics for people who are like that as well. So you can still help them open up and then find out exactly what's going on.
But what I would be most interested in is the career of a disease. So maybe you can.
I've never actually heard that. I haven't heard that that term, but that's a really good term.
Oh, I think a disease can really make a career in a body.
Yeah, but I've never thought of it like that. But it's so good. I'm going to write it down.
So maybe you have an interesting case to tell us, to show us how a disease can develop from level to level and creep into a body.
I suppose, you know, there are a few people. So what I'm actually specializing in now is in endometriosis, because it's something I believe I had myself. I was never diagnosed, And then my daughter started showing symptoms. She was never diagnosed either, because she spoke to my colleague and got sorted. But what I see in a lot of these people is that they have different, the disease might have started somewhere, but it ends up with, endometriosis. A lot of them have psoriasis problems, psoriasis, and various other things, IBS, all that kind of thing, and quite severely ill, actually. Or they are. It's quite a restricting, because it's very difficult, because the pain is so bad that it's very difficult, and the only treatment they get is hormonal treatment for operations or surgery, but the surgery in Sweden is quite difficult to get. And what I've discovered, I had no idea, is that a lot of them actually get 2 different types of contraceptive pills to take at the same time, because just one is not going to get rid of the pain. So, and that to me was a bit of a revelation. So, but you see, from the beginning, there were signs really early on in their lives that a lot of them had profuse perspiration, which is obviously a sign of some kind of imbalance in the body. A lot of them have had eczema, which has been suppressed. So this is, and a lot of kind of tonsillitis and as what we call in homeopathy, overproduction, basically, of stuff, mucus, a lot of stuff. So the question is, where does this come from? And quite often, obviously, the mother will have had similar problems. But to me, it seems to me that it starts off with, they have something, and then they're given medication and suppressing, the antibiotics, and then it just gets worse and worse. And then it affects the thyroid gland, because the thyroid is regulating the metabolism of things in the body, which is the removal of skin cells that is too slow. So that's why the psoriasis develops. And the endometriosis is the overproduction of endometrial tissue that ends up in different places in the body. So when they come to me, they've usually tried everything. So you have to then start cleaning them up, sometimes before you can actually start proper treatment. But it's just, I often think, gosh, if you had not been given that antibiotic when you were little, you might not have ended up like this.
Yeah.
And I'm also, I'm quite interested in whether vaccines might be a trigger for this. I don't know, but it seems to me that quite often it can trigger things. I don't know if that's the case, but
it would sound reasonable, because when you say it's all about hyper, then we are in the psychotic miasm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And if you get problems from vaccination, you're usually in a hyperreactive state.
Yeah.
So you could say the hyperreactiveness can start with the vaccination, and from there go on and implement in the body.
But because, the kids are so young when they get them, we don't know whether that was the problem or not, really. So I sometimes think maybe it was just that antibiotics, but because most of them have been on a lot of antibiotics, and for me, I had antibiotics for 4 or 5 years because I had the ear problems. I was an ear child, as we call them in Sweden.
Okay, so we could say your country is prone to that disease, because as you cannot get complementary medicine as a child, every illness you will have up to 8 will be suppressed.
Yeah.
And go deeper into the body.
Yeah.
So the possibility that a child ends up in a psychotic miasm aged 8 is quite
it's quite
often. Huh?
Yeah.
So very interesting from a research point of view. That's very interesting, because then we would have had to look at Sweden as a country where we can really find and research the suppression of disease by antibiotics.
Yeah. So I'm writing this down.
That's it's really very interesting, because this is specific to your country. I didn't realize this before talking to you. So thank you very much for that information.
To be honest, I hadn't thought of it like that. So thank you. Now we just need to get somebody to do the research.
Yeah, but it could start with dermatology, because I guess every rash on the skin will be suppressed. Yeah. And from there on, we all know that the tendency of getting infections with streptococcus and staphylococcus increases. And if you suppress that again, you're already down to the deeper organs and tissues.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So you will have the onset of rheumatism before age of 8.
Yeah.
Whenever that breaks out is a different thing, but the onset will be before that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very.
Yeah. Very. Yeah. No, I hadn't actually thought of it like that before, but yes, absolutely.
And the onset of the IBS and leaky gut syndrome, the same, must be before 8. And you know how that ends up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in my case, it definitely was.
Yeah. So the IBS thing is a hyperreaction as well.
Yeah.
And from there, the autoimmune disorder is a natural career of disease, I would say.
But what is so amazing is how you can unravel it and peel back the layers. You know, I quite like that onion analogy where you start somewhere and you peel, and it takes a lot of time. And obviously this is a problem for people, because a lot of these people don't work, so they don't have money. And in Sweden, you have to, I can't work for free, because then I would have to work somewhere else and I wouldn't have the energy to do the work. So I do have some patients who come for half price. I do a number of them each month. But I'm not, unfortunately, able to do that. So this is a problem that because it's not quick when you peel. And also when people have such low energy, you kind of have to be quite careful when you're threading carefully.
Yes, but we all did read Paracelsus, and we know when you have a career of disease that goes in 30 years in the body, you will at least need 30 months to
come back,
to go back.
Yeah.
And this is just the time. And when you look at, when you do the first consultation and they talk to the client for 1.5 hours or something, and you have the line of the disease, and you see it developed for 24 years, then it's clear it will take 2 years going back.
Yeah, and I do tell my patients that, that this is not miracle medicine. It can be in some cases, but usually not in these kind of chronic cases, that you have to, I do tell them that you will, hopefully you will get some relief on some levels, but sometimes the remedies work, even though it's not completely obvious to you right now, but it will be preparing. And also, people forget. I forget that I've had things. I ended up with eczema a few years ago, and I spoke to my homeopath about it. And when I came back, and that was about 2 or 3 months later, he said, "So how's the eczema?" I'm like, "I don't have eczema." I said, "But you did." I said, "No, I've never had eczema." And he said, "Well, last time you were here, you told me you had eczema." And then I'd completely forgotten. Mm-hmm. But then I remember he came back to me. Yeah, I did have really bad eczema in my, my folds on my arms and the back of my knees.
Mm. Atopic eczema then.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is often combined with endometriosis.
Yeah, yeah. I think it might have been because I didn't see a homeopath at the time, and I took a remedy, and I think it triggered the downfall. I was actually fairly well. I don't even know why I did that. I've never done it before like that, unless it's been an acute. But I just thought, and I think it just pushed me back a bit. I took the wrong remedy at the wrong time, so I kind of had to start going back again.
So we hit a very interesting point again here. If you have the carrier of the disease and you give at the end the right remedy and you are on your way back,
yeah,
then taking conventional medicine or even the wrong homeopathic medicine will go that way again.
Yeah.
And you will have to have a new start going here.
But what I think, actually what happened then was, I then contacted my old homeopath who I hadn't spoken to for various reasons, moving, I don't know, I don't actually know what happened. But I think I was feeling fine, and that's why I didn't contact her. And then when I started at Unravel, I contacted her again, and I must say, so this is a year later, my level of health is even better than it was before, and I'm getting older, but my level of health is much better than it was even then.
Isn't that great?
It's
getting older and getting healthier at the same time. This is really a rejuvenation process that we can achieve using homeopathy. Because, as you said, somebody comes and he or she has already many layers of disease. And then we push it slowly, slowly, slowly back. And you come to a healthy point, maybe aged 30, 40, 50, or 60. And isn't that a miracle?
Yeah. I know, I love it.
Me too.
And it still surprises me sometimes when I get a remedy and I think, wow, is that even possible?
So there are many ways of understanding disease and curing disease, but I think homeopathy is one of the most elegant ways.
Yeah.
Very elegant, very effective. And from the point of the remedy is cheap.
Oh, yes, very cheap.
So from the economical point of view, it's very reasonable to go for homeopathy. So tell me a bit more of the journey of case taking, because this is an adventure in itself.
I know. It's well, I think one of the things that I enjoy is seeing when somebody comes for the first time that sometimes they can be a bit uncomfortable with all the questions. I try not to, I try to be gentle and explain why I need to know all these kind of things about them. But it's also, so I do think there is sometimes, not always, but sometimes a therapeutic element just in the conversation. But like I say to people, when people say that to me, I say, well, I don't think, if I can sort somebody's period problems out in a month by talking, getting rid of their period pain by them just talking to me, I can't, surely I'm not the only one then, why are we using all these medicines if talking is the answer? So clearly it's not the full answer. But people are not, we're not really taught to listen to people properly. And I think that's what the patient enjoys, that they are able to explore and explain and talk and realize things as they're talking, how things work together. And also how, because a lot of people ask me if I do iridology, because in Sweden that's quite, that's connected. People think that homeopaths, you have to do iridology to be a homeopath. Because a lot of, I'm assuming somebody brought iridology to Sweden, some homeopath brought iridology to Sweden, trained everybody, and that's why people think it's got to do with homeopathy. But what I find fascinating is that by just sitting listening to what people are saying, I can sort of work out which organ in the body are not working, or what, and how this hangs together. Obviously, this is now 15 years of experience of working with people. So that takes time as well. In the beginning, obviously, I didn't know that. But you recognize things and you think, it's actually, I shouldn't say simple because it takes a lot of training, but it's actually quite simple.
In the end, it's absolutely.
In the end, it's actually really simple.
So logic.
It's all logic and simple, and the body tells you and the mind tells you what the problem is.
It all depends on experience. And when I talk to somebody like Professor Gupta, who has 35 years of experience and works in a hospital and sees a client 2 times a day.
Yeah.
This is incredible from our point of view. That kind of experience.
Yeah. And so, I had something I was going to say. I can't remember what it was. It might come back again. Oh yes, and in the case, I don't always. It depends really. Sometimes I don't do it from the beginning, but sometimes, as people are getting better, I start explaining to them how their body works and why. So, say for instance, people who get edema in the legs, they then think that you have to get a diuretic medicine, or that's what you would be prescribed, a diuretic medicine. And when you then explain to them that probably they're not drinking enough water, and your body starts, because the body thinks it's not going to get any more water, it starts collecting the water, and then it becomes too heavy for the heart and the kidneys to work together and all that kind of thing. And I say, so what you actually need to do is to drink more water, maybe put your legs up, but you need to actually drink more water to tell your kidneys that there will be some more water coming, and you don't have to hold on to it, basically. And that usually works. I mean, it doesn't always work, and sometimes you have to give them remedies as well, but it's unlearning everything we've learned, really, and starting to look at what is actually, how does the body work, really, that I find really...
All the things the grannies knew.
Sorry?
All the things our grannies knew.
Yeah.
And knew what tea to take to get rid of it.
Yeah.
This is forgotten.
Yeah, so nobody knows how the body works. And sometimes, and even, it might not even be patients, but when I talk to some people and they say something, they have this problem, or they know this person has this problem, and then I start explaining and they go, that actually makes sense. And you just think, yeah, we've forgotten that, bodies are not just bits, it's a system.
Yes, it's the same thing with taking medication to lower the blood pressure. It only lowers the oxygen in the cells, but it doesn't really help.
Yeah.
And if we explain them that if you want to have more water on the other end and you turn down the pump, it won't have more water at the other end, then they understand.
Yeah, no, I find it really fascinating when sitting with patients. And also, sometimes I think, I've had for a while, there was a while I had people who've been through such serious, horrible experiences, but on the outside, they look like anybody else. That, they go to work. I mean, some people don't, but a lot of people still carry on as, and then, as normal. And they have some, both serious health issues, but also mental, emotional issues. And they still get on. They do their thing.
Tell me a bit more about that.
But can't really say without, in general, but some, people who've had parents, a parent being murdered by the other parent, for instance, when they were 15, and you know, stuff like that, like really, really serious stuff. And somehow they still function in society. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And also how sometimes these things come back to haunt you. You can suppress them so long, and then you start getting flashbacks and things starting. And then with homeopathic remedies, you can bring calm to them.
Yes, all that you suppress comes back with 7 friends.
Yeah, comes and bites you in the bum sooner or later, doesn't it?
Yes, and more severe. More severe, till you listen.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Till you listen and face the conflict that you wanted to bury.
Yeah. And quite a lot of people have been to counselling and CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, and various things, but somehow it's still in there. And then, you know, I've seen it so many times now with homeopathic treatment. It's like they don't forget, but they can relax in it.
Okay. The Indian homeopaths are very good in treating mental disease, homeopathy.
Yeah.
Some colleagues have astounding effects in autism.
Well, even in the UK and even in Sweden, people have very good effects. So homeopathy is not very big in Sweden, but there are some really good homeopaths here.
That's just nice to hear. What about COVID-19 treatment? Were you allowed to treat it?
No, it's a communicable disease, and we were not. And at that time, I was so busy. I did have a couple. One who was confirmed. But nobody says anything about treating a person with symptoms, you know, because most people are not confirmed COVID cases. So I don't think there would have been any consequences if I did, or to anybody who did, because they hadn't been tested. So you can't prove that that's what they had, would be my argument in court if it ever came to it.
Yeah. So you were not allowed to treat confirmed cases, but of course the non-confirmed cases anybody can treat. Did Sweden use something like homeoprophylaxis? Probably not.
You mean the Swedish government? No, only conventional medicine is allowed.
Okay. And do you have something like the Ministry of Ayush, like they have in India? A ministry that looks for complementary treatment and health of the inhabitants of the country?
No, you just got the basic Department of Health.
Basic Department of Health and the medical chambers, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So even in your country, this is lacking, as in other countries.
Yeah.
Do you think the Swedish population would like to have something like that?
I actually think that they would, maybe not the whole Swedish population, because Sweden is very scientifically based. We have a lot of pharmaceutical companies in Sweden that might not be Swedish anymore, but they were Swedish from the beginning. So it's a big industry here. And a lot of people, you know, their argument quite often is, oh, well, I'm only using things that are scientifically tested. And then I said, well, there is quite a lot of scientific evidence that homeopathy works. And I go, oh, I didn't know that. So the question whether, I think some people would, and that population is growing. That's what I think, because I think people like things to be regulated. But the problem is, I think if we become regulated, I'm not sure that we would be able to practice the way we do. So for instance, in Sweden, all the homeopathic remedies, each remedy at each potency has to be registered with the well, FDA, I think it's called. And it's a very expensive process. So therefore, we don't have a lot of remedies. But somebody organised a conference a few years ago. VITA organised, she's Swedish, organised a conference on research a few years ago. I can't remember exactly when it was actually. And Peter Fisher was here talking about it. And the FDA was invited, and after that they said that we can actually, patients can order remedies from abroad. As a homeopath, I can't order them from abroad and give them to a patient. But patients, you know, to get access to a larger range.
So the patients have to just order it from Germany or somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I just had to check my diary because I thought I had a meeting straight after here, but I don't this one.
Okay, so my last question is: would you think that Sweden would go for compulsory vaccination in COVID-19?
Sorry, go for what?
Compulsory vaccination.
I don't know actually, because I did read something yesterday that they think that it might not be that effective. And you know, we had a real big problem with in 2009 with the bird flu, because they rushed was it the swine flu? I can't remember, some kind of flu we had in 2009. And a lot of people got severe side effects from that because it had been rushed through. So I think they will be quite cautious about compulsory vaccination, I would hope. One of the, I think it was there was a woman Tory party, or you know, the more, who tried to introduce compulsory childhood vaccinations, but that got thrown out a couple of years ago. So I'm hoping not.
Okay.
And actually, I was at a barbecue the other night, and the question of this vaccine was brought up. And it was interesting that none of the people there, and I know at least one is he's a scientist basically, weren't 100% sure. It wasn't like a clear given that I will have to take it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So usually it's not a topic of conversation really, because people get so heated about it. But I think people still remember what happened in 2009, so they're quite cautious.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
A bit of skepsis in this region is very good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Elisabeth, thank you very much for taking time to talk to me. Is there any final word you would like to address to the people? Yes, one thing that I quite often think about is that patients often come when they've tried everything else, conventional, suppressed, and is to listen to your body when it starts whispering. And that's when you should do something, rather than, you know, come and see a homeopath, rather than waiting until your symptoms are screaming and you have to have a surgery or cortisone or whatever it is, whatever medicine that is offered for the problem. That quite often, when the body starts whispering, then you can stop the career. The term you used, stop the career of the disease in its tracks. Yes, and start early treatment. That obviously would be better.
Yeah.
Elisabeth, have a very fine day. It was fun to talk to you, and I hope we meet soon again.
Yes, so do I. Thank you for doing this.
Thank
you. Bye.
Bye.